On this episode of Lady K Sailing, we get really dirty, and then we get wet, and then we break a whole bunch of stuff. Hello.
What are you doing?
We're sailing
No.
on the Chesapeake.
No.
We're chasing Michael.
Chasing Michael.
So, we left Solomon's Island this morning. It's so peaceful. It's coming up on 7 a.m. We're in Reedville in a little anchorage, and we agreed with Barefoot 2, which is our buddy boat behind us, that we'd leave at 7 a.m. So we're going to get started. We're 60 miles from Norfolk. It's going to be a long day, big push. A 60-mile day on the Chesapeake is not like a 60-mile day anywhere else. You get beat up pretty bad, and it makes for a hard day. But we're going to try it. We're going to try to do the 60 miles because that will put us at the end of the Chesapeake. And if we make it, no more Chesapeake Bay. And tomorrow is supposed to be really bad weather for wind and everything. So if we can finish the Chesapeake today, that'd be very helpful. Anyway, we got a beautiful sunrise. Cruising life. Very, very beautiful.
Just a quick update. We are about 2.5 hours away from Norfolk, where we're dropping the hook for the night. And yeah, this is the most calm we've seen the Chesapeake Bay yet. So I'm not doing a heck of a whole lot. Autopilot's doing most of the work. Yeah, about to cross a very large shipping channel. Luckily there's nothing in it. Got the main up. It's pretty powered up right now. Not doing very good for speed though. Maybe 5 knots. But we've got the tide working against us right now, so not much we can do. I got a tiny sliver of the jib out too, but just I don't even know if it's really doing anything. But just figured I'd do a little update, check in, whatever. So yeah, that's where we're at. Another 8 hours in and 2.5 hours to go.
Hey guys, well, we have officially been motor sailing, a little bit of just sailing today for, I think we're at 8 hours now. 60-mile day getting to Norfolk, which officially is the end of the Chesapeake Bay for us. So we're gonna stay 2 nights in Norfolk, I think, try to get another episode uploaded. Probably the Annapolis Boat Show episode, I think we still have to make it. Hiding from the hurricane put us a few days behind, so I apologize for that. We have an hour and 29 minutes till Norfolk, apparently. We are running full main. We are dead upwind. We got a little bit of the jib out, and we're using the opposite sheet to pull it up above center, so it's helping us a little bit. But we're against the tide, and we're barely making 5.25 knots. It's sort of bouncing around a little bit with the waves. But the Chesapeake, I've never seen it this calm and this flat. So, I mean, that's a blessing. The Chesapeake can get stirred up pretty bad, We've been out in the Chesapeake in some pretty bad stuff, but this is not bad. I don't mind motor sailing all day because it's calm and relaxing, and you can just use the autopilot and watch TV, and just, we've been taking turns, 1 hour on, 1 hour off, so it's nice. You get to have a nice relaxing time. The plan in Norfolk is to stay for 2 nights, do the episode, and then we start the next chapter, which is the ICW. We're kind of looking back on it as chapters. We had the Great Lakes, and then the second chapter was the Erie Canal. The third chapter was down the Hudson and out into the ocean, and the fourth chapter was the Delaware and Chesapeake Bays. So chapter 5 will be ICW, which will be a lot like the Erie Canal, I imagine. We're a little bit worried about the condition of the ICW with Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Michael that have just gone through, so we're a bit worried about it, but we're staying on top of all the cruiser forums and the Facebook groups and just making sure that we're reading all the information that there is on the subject. We may go out and do a couple miles offshore. We may not. We're really not sure. So yeah, that's it. Stay tuned. The next update should be from a nice happy little anchorage in Norfolk, Virginia. Hey guys, it's 7:30 in the morning. We are just near Norfolk, and we are about to finish the Chesapeake and head down the ICW. So, we're just waking up, getting the coffee on. Candace is turning the propane on. I am getting navionics figured out. We're going to hit the Dismal Swamp today and make some miles. Right, honey?
Yeah.
Make some miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just motor sailing toward the opening for the ICW. There's a lot of military sort of stuff going on over there, and then there's this big guy. He's coming up behind us, so we are going to sail just on the edge of the channel, let him go by, and then we'll jump in and get in behind him as he enters the ICW, or wherever the hell he's going. No idea. Oh, there's a shipping yard right here. He might be going there. Just passing through Norfolk. A lot of military ships. I think they're destroyers. And then the first 2 bridges of the ICW are in front of us, and like the book said, they're usually open unless there's a train scheduled. So the one that you can see behind me is typically 6 feet clearance, but open it's 300 feet. So it's one heck of an engineering thing for it to be that big. Yeah, it looks like they're both open, and then there's a big concrete bridge in front of us too that's very, very tall anyway. And there's a military helicopter that's about to fly over us. Looks military anyway.
We have passed through all the lift bridges, and we are in Chesapeake right now. And we are coming up to a bridge where we have to decide if we are taking the Virginia Cut or the Dismal Swamp. And we're going with the Dismal Swamp. Yes, we know we're going to run our ground. Kind of expect it. And no, we don't want to take the Virginia Cut because we don't like wakes. But yeah, so here we are. We're at that point. And we are taking the right way.
Dismal Swamp. I'm a bit scared because I've heard scary things, but we're gonna turn and we're gonna go in. Oh, scary. And just like that, we're in the Erie Canal again. Look.
So we have just reached the first lock in the Dismal Swamp, and we can't do anything because there are a frick ton of boats ahead of us. They're locking through right now, though. They've got about 15 boats in the lock right now. I believe it's one of the rallies headed south. So as soon as they're through, then we'll do the next batch. And right now, there's probably like a dozen boats.
So we arrived at the first lock, which is behind me, 2 hours ago. And there's a rally of 15 boats in front of us. It's like the Sail for the Sun rally or something. So they have all been locking since 11:30. We got here at just after 11:30. They're finally through the lock. It took a few trips. And now we have been out here maneuvering. Nobody thought to put an anchor down 2 hours ago because we didn't think it would be that long. So we've been out here, all of us, just maneuvering in this little tiny Dismal Swamp. And we've already run aground and gotten stuck once in maneuvering. Like, it's tight in here, and only the middle has enough depth. So you got to really, really be careful and try not to hit each other. But we're tired of it. We want to get in the lock and get it over with so we can go. And then we have another 14 miles after the lock to do, so a couple hours there. Boy, long day. This is the Dismal Swamp. It's pretty, but it's kind of dismal. It's very long and very boring, and very shallow. We got the boat stuck while we were waiting by the lock. We got it unstuck, but anyway, this is it. Barefoot's behind us. And we got about an hour to go, or 45 minutes before we get to where we want to be. We were going to go to the visitor center at Dismal Swamp, but there's a rally of 15 boats ahead of us, and they're all going to the visitor center, so we can't go. So there's a dock before it, but only enough room for 2 boats. And we're pretty sure the 2 boats in front of us are actually going there. And we can't pass them. There's no way to pass in here. You have to stay dead center, and it's 6 feet right in the middle. So the depth sounder actually says 5. So that's a bit scary. Yeah, we're hoping we can find a place to tie up at this dock, and if not, we're gonna have to get creative. I don't know what the other options might be, other than press on and go farther and farther and farther. But it's already almost 4 o'clock. We're getting tired, so we'll see. Feels like the Erie Canal all over again, though. A lot. What are we doing, babe?
We are going down the ditch. Day 2.
Day 2, Dismal Swamp Ditch. We're gonna try to get to Elizabeth City.
Yeah.
At the end of the Dismal Swamp, where it meets back up with the Virginia Cut. Found a really cool place to stay last night. We're like 8 miles from the lock on a little dock that only accommodates 2 boats. But somebody was mighty neighborly and let me show you. So, yeah, we rafted up to day 35, and barefoot rafted up to a trawler. So pretty cool. We're just getting ready, getting the engine warmed up, getting ready to get out of here and make some miles. The people that held us up yesterday at the lock is the big party of 16 boats. It's a Sail to the Sun rally. We're hearing that we might be able to pass them because of their agenda on that rally. So if we can get around them and get in front of them, we won't get held up at the locks anymore while they try to lock through 16 boats. That'd be pretty cool. So we're going to try to get ahead. Going to get a bright and early start here at 7:45. I think it's wheels up, and we're going to go. So should be fun. Another day on the ditch of bumping logs on the bottom with our keel. But it's nice. It's so peaceful out here. Like, you can see the trees just for miles and miles and miles. Dead arrow straight path. And you just go between these trees, trying not to clip the mast on trees and try not to bump the keel on the bottom. We're reading 7 feet of water right here at the dock. It's not uncommon for it to read 5. There's a bit of an offset to our depth sounder, so I know 5 means we still have 2 under the keel. When it reads 3, we are out of water. We are a 5-foot draft, so I don't know who programmed the offset on this thing. It's completely wrong, but anyway, we know it. We know that 7 means 9 and 3 means 5. And you just add 2, and that's what the real depth is. But we're in 7. We're going to hope to not bump into anything and hope to not drag or along the bottom or hit the bottom or anything like that. And hope we have a good day. See you soon.
Whew, that was scary, but we made it. We weren't sure if we were going to have enough room to get all around all those other boats in the rally, but we did. And I believe I heard Tim say we were reading about 9 feet deep, so all is good. And now we have to clear the pathway for everybody behind us.
Never been that bad.
What are you doing, babe?
Sailing boat.
Yeah?
We're headed for adventure, our worries left behind. Taken to the water, fun rising like the tide. With open skies above us, we'll be running side by side. Come on and weigh the anchor, we're casting off the line. We're about the destination, the journey is divine.
So today was a day from hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
We,
think that's quite the word, but yeah.
Clusterfuck. We left Elizabeth City, North Carolina, to cross the Sound, some sound that comes off the, I don't know. Anyway, so we didn't really figure on how big the Sound was, how far across, how wide, and thus how bad the waves can get. So we left at 7:30 in the morning with the bridge opening because we were anchored or tied up to a dock for free right at the bridge. So the bridge opens at 7:30 or 8:30 or sort of on call after that. But the 7:30 opening we snuck through. We went out into sort of the river that starts with a P. I don't know what it's called. And immediately the engine started overheating. So this is once we've already been running for half an hour. So it just kind of, what the hell? So
Strike one.
yeah, strike one. So we're in a little channel. It's not very wide. It's maybe 100 feet wide. And if you go outside the channel, it's like 3 feet deep. So you have to stay in the channel. And the engine starts overheating. So I'm like, shit, shut it down. Candace opens the engine bay, and I dive down there, and I pull the strainer out, the seawater strainer that cools the engine. And there was some scum in there and stuff, and I cleaned it up. Put it all back together, fire the engine back up, just as we're drifting out of the channel. Fire it back up, and I mean, we're in 15 knots of wind, mind you, the whole time. So fire it back up, drive back into the channel, and look down, and the engine's spiking again. It's coming up. It usually rides at like 25% of the gauge, and it's like spiking above 50%, and it's on its way up. So I like look around, I'm like, okay, we're firing up right now with the wind. I figure we got maybe 5 minutes before we're drifting out of the channel again. Shut off the motor, dive back in there, pull off the impeller cover housing, and the impeller is sure enough missing a blade. Still not sure where that blade is. We're gonna have to take apart the heat exchanger to find it. But anyway, luckily we planned for this, slap in a new impeller, put it all back together before we even drift out of the channel, like 5 minutes, no problem. Fire it up, nice and cool, puking lots of water out of the back of the boat. Everything's fantastic. And then we were like, okay, well, let's get on with our journey. We're with Barefoot 2, our buddy boat, and we set out down this river in 15 knots on the beam. So pretty quickly, we're full canvas, engines off. We're heeled over quite a ways, and we're making 7 knots, and we're just having a great time. But the wind gusts were up above 20. So every once in a while, there'd be a gust above 20 knots, and we'd start to round up into the wind. And I'd go full lock to stop from rounding up. And we'd sort of ride it like that for, you know, the 10-second wind gust. And then it would die off, and we'd get back on our way, and we'd get back under heel, and everything's great again. And we did that for about an hour. And then the very last wind gust, it was fun.
Great.
It was fantastic to be
So
sailing.
good.
Then as we got out toward the Sound, there was a wind gust that came up over 20 knots, and it just stayed. It didn't stop. So we slowly rounded up. I went full lock again, and we started like just keep rounding up, and pretty soon I couldn't fight it anymore. We ended up nose into the wind.
All the while, we've got these wonderful following seas. Like,
oh yeah, we have like,
they're-
at that point I think it was like 4 foot following seas, so the boat's like stern up, bow up, stern
fighting
up,
that
bow
with
up.
full canvas.
Yeah, and you're
like hard
rocking the wheel
over.
back and
Like,
forth.
what do you do?
But now, yeah, we're rounding up, and we're rounding up bad, worse than I think we ever have. Even in racing, it was worse today. So we round up, and then the jib comes across the deck and starts flapping violently. And we had a little rip in it the other day.
That big.
Well, now it's from the back of the jib to the front of the jib. It's about 3/4 of the way up, and it just shredded, just absolutely shredded when this roundup happened. So obviously we douse the jib, keep the main out, and we get back on track, and now the seas get really rough. And I'm breaking 6 to 8 foot waves breaking, and some of them even crashed on the side of the boat. Like, they break right at us,
Oh, yeah,
and they
like-
splash the whole side of the boat. And we're just back and forth,
Thought
bucking
her
and
stern
rolling.
was
and-
getting shoved underwater a couple times.
Yeah.
Like, they were big.
They're close
It
together
was
too. They're
like-
only about maybe 40 feet apart. So you go over one, and then you whoosh down the other side, throwing a bow wave out either side. And then as soon as you get to the bottom, the other one's right on the stern. So then it picks you up immediately. So now we've got, like, the impeller's gone bad, the jib is shredded. Now we're just in this violent, evil sea. And I look at the chart, and it's 10 miles to the other side of the Sound. So a couple hours. I think we did it in an hour and 20 or something. We're doing seven and change the whole time. So I mean, we were screaming, but thanks to the following seas, and then we had the main up, and it was a quick ride. But then when you start to have a wave come up behind you, Lady K is up on the wave she just crashed down, and the dinghy is on the next wave. So the dinghy will race up behind K, bang into the back end of K, and then start doing a 180. And point the wrong way, and then K starts on the next wave and takes off like a bat out of hell, and yanks the dinghy tender, or the dinghy painter, really, really hard. So this happened for about an hour, and we tried everything we could think of to try and make it not be so violent. But ultimately, there was a big bang, and one of the tow hooks on the dinghy, the starboard side tow hook on the dinghy, and it's got those little D rings, just completely ripped right out of the vinyl that it's surrounded by. It just bang, and it's huge bang, and the dinghy takes off out to our starboard, and we're now towing the dinghy by its port tow ring. So the dinghy takes off out to starboard, and it stays way out to starboard, like 20 feet out off our beam, and it's racing up and down the waves like this. But it's much more calm because now it's out beside us because we're towing it from the front corner, and its keel sort of keeps it straight on our track. So now it's not like banging so bad.
We killed it on the revs too. Like we dropped down.
Yeah, we slowed
in
right
speed.
down.
We're like,
yeah,
not worth losing the
we
dinghy
went from
over,
7
so.
knots to 5 knots, I think. But ultimately, after about 20 minutes, there was another bang, and it was the other tow hook. And it actually wasn't the other D-ring didn't break. The actual clasp we were using, and it's sailing hardware, rated for however many 1,000 pounds, it broke. And it's like that little fork thing with the bolt that goes through and then twists. It snapped one of the ends of the fork and just went bang, and the dinghy took off. And I mean, 8 to 10 foot seas, crashing waves, the dinghy's gone. And I'm like, okay, get the main down. So Candace goes up. We've got the preventer on because the wind was sort of dancing around our stern a little bit. So we've got the preventer on. So Candace goes up and starts ripping the main down. And the boat is rocking and hobby horsing and bucking, and it's just so violent. She can't get a bungee cord around the main. So I'm like, wrap the sheet around it. So the main sheet, since the main's down, is all just laying there on the deck. So she wraps the sheet around it a couple times. I mean, a few minutes later, the main's secure. And I can actually get on the power, turn around, and go to find the dinghy. The problem was we were at the entrance to the ICW at this point, where it gets it's like 4 feet on either side. You've got a 50-foot wide channel, and the dinghy is going right for the shallows. And I'm like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. She finally gets it secured. We spin around, we go off, and we got the dinghy just in time. We came along on the leeward side of the dinghy, so the wind would keep pushing the dinghy onto the boat. And we landed on the dinghy a few times as we were trying to swing a boat hook at it.
Sorry, baby.
It's right beside us, swinging a boat hook at it, trying to get anything on it to catch. And we landed on it a few times, we banged it around a few times. But ultimately, we got it with the boat hook. We got another line through, or attached to the front middle tow hook, which you don't tow a dinghy by. Everybody knows this. It's just strictly for tying up a dinghy, I think. And you can tell by looking at it, it's way less built. It's way less strong. So we get a line on that. And I'm like, well, it's the only tow hook left, so let's carry on. So we carry on at like 3.5 knots, just motoring into this, with still the huge following seas, still violent. And we're motoring, and I'm like, we're going to lose this. This hook's going to break. Like, it's still whipping around, and the dinghy's spinning and snapping the line. So it's going to break. We need to do something different, and we need to do it before we lose the dinghy. So we kill the motor, like go right to neutral, pull the dinghy right up to the back of the boat, and the boat's like bang, bang, bang. And Candace leans over the side, and every time the dinghy and the boat come near each other, she tries to put a line around, the dinghy has ropes around the top of it that are sort of weaved into the rubber that the dinghy's made out of, or the vinyl. So we get a line around that, and we'll equalize the two lines, and we'll try to let the two areas take the strain. But every time, like, the dinghy comes close, and then it goes away, and then it comes close, and it goes away. So like, a few minutes of fighting with it, we got it. And then we had 2 lines on the dinghy. And then we, again, started up the ICW. And the line on the ropes wasn't quite as tight as the other line, and I couldn't adjust it. So I'm, like, just holding it by hand, making sure that every time the dinghy comes close to the boat, I pull the line in, and then I let it out slowly, while steering and navigating. And Candace was watching for crab pots the whole time, because there's fucking crab pots everywhere.
Yay!
Just, what a shit day. So then we got to the bridge that marks the beginning of Alligator River, and we're on the bridge, and the bridge is broken, of course. There's a couple of boats just circling. We know one of them was on GABA.
Strike 4.
So we radio on GABA, we're like, what's up? And we hear about all this, like the computer's broken that makes the bridge open. So we're stuck out in these huge following seas, and we're bouncing all over, and the dinghy's about to break loose, and the jib's
like
shredded.
6 other boats circling, and like just chaos.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we.
Yeah, finally, I was like, well, it's a good opportunity. Candace, just drive into the wind,